Morning, thank you. Good morning. Hello, Tejanas and Texans, how are you? How many are Texans? Just a show of hands. Woohoo! You guys know you're in the greatest state in the union. Next to California. California is my second most favorite place on the planet because my baby boy lives there. So how many, this is your first time at an Executive Women in Texas Government Conference? Oh my goodness, wow, amazing. Well, welcome. This is my jam. I actually served 15 years in government, and 12 years in state government, and the balance of that in federal government. And I just loved my government service. It changed my life forever. Before we get started, get out your phones. Come on, I know everybody has a smartphone. Get out your phones, pull up your Instagram or Facebook. I'm going to give you my tag. In order for you to understand the power behind my story, you have to follow. And I love it when I hear from women all over the country who are impacted by the story. And so I want you to either go to your Instagram account and do it now, because if you're like me, you walk out that door and forget, and go to Instagram or your Facebook and hit Rebecca Ann Contreras. Make sure you put the N in there and follow me. I'd love to hear from you. I also put some cool little cards in your swag bag, so you have that as well. And I just want to thank Monique, Teresa, and Jessica and the team for the invitation to be here today. I am a native El Paso girl. Anybody here from El Paso, Texas? All right, let's hear from only those from El Paso. No, it's a big deal. That's where we have the good enchiladas and the good chile and the good tortillas, and here we just have Tex-Mex, so it's all good. But anyway, I'm super thrilled to be here. I've been in Austin most of my life outside of the 4 years that I lived in the Washington, D.C. area to serve under President Bush. And I'll tell you, out of all the events that I get to be a part of, an event like this that brings women serving in government together for such a time as this to make such an impact in the roles that you all are playing is definitely my very favorite thing. I thought I'd share a couple of pictures with you during my time with President Bush. So I was able to, actually, I served Governor Bush here in Texas. I was his director of personnel for the entire time he was in office, and then I went with him to the White House, and these are some fun White House pics that I get to share with you. This is the most important picture, ladies. These are my girls of legacy. I have 12 girls. These are a few of them. The other ones weren't available, that are part of a program that I started called Girls of Legacy. How many believe in the give back and paying it forward? Everybody here has the opportunity to invest in the next generation of you. And these are my girls. I have 12 girls out of some inner city schools in Austin that are graduating seniors. These girls in particular are going in their second year at university, and they're part of a program and a fabric of the give back. And more importantly than just helping them with their scholarship, we invest in them, we mentor them, and really encourage them to live their best life. Most of the girls that we work with come out of the inner city and have really tragic environmental factors, single parent homes, they've lost loved ones, or they're just struggling economically, and we come around them. And I was super happy that Forbes did a feature this month, actually this last month, for the Girls of Legacy and our give back, and they're really my legacy moving forward. And then this is my familia. Yes, we represent America. For people that don't know, this is what America looks like. It is multi-generational, multiracial, and I'm super proud of my family. My baby boy, the one I said is in LA, is that 6'5" giant. He still will always be my baby. How many grandparents do we have in the house? All right, Nana, Papa, G-Mama, what do they call you? I tried, when I had my first grandbaby, she's the little girl sitting next to me, I tried to get her to call me Grandma. Well, guess what? They call you what they want to call you. I was just praying that it would be some sort of fun name, and she ended up calling me Nana, so Nana will work. But yeah, these are my kids, and I'm super proud. And that is my sexy sexy hunka of a man, husband. I have been married to him since I was 12. Just kidding. He's actually 10 years older than I am, and he always says, will you quit telling people you met me when you were a teenager? I'm like, well, technically I did. But we got married. I was 21 when I married him. But we got married and began our journey together to build our family. I'll tell you a little about my story. And so I'm super thrilled to be with you here today. I think after my 15 years in government, as I said, it changed my life. I am the kind of person that is all about the cause and the impact, and when you hear my story, you'll understand how important living the best of my ability while I'm here on earth is on this earth, and that includes impacting and changing people. So I'm in the people business. How many HR folks do we have in the room? I bet we have a few HR folks. Okay, so I'm going to give a book away. If you are in the HR business and you've been in the business at least 20 years, stand up. 20 years. Awesome. How many do we have? Keep standing so I can see how many of you are. 20 years. Okay, so I don't know if this is hopefully not being recorded. I'm the only one recording it. So you know when the shit hits the fan and everybody goes to your office and you have to deal with all the minutia that comes with the employee? So I'm going to give you guys a Lost Girl book because you deserve it. I know what it's like. So if you'll keep standing, Crystal, if you'll give the ladies standing a book. So I don't know about you, but when I was in the HR business in government, now I get to be an HR business owner and I get to decide which clients and which minutia I'm going to put up with, right? But back in the day when you had no choice and you get that call, one time I got a call from Governor Bush's close confidant who said, hey, you know, this person's not working out. We need you to move them on. So my office had a couch. Do you girls have a couch in your office? Put a couch in your office. So people would be known, if you get called to Rebecca's office and she's sitting you on the couch, something's really wrong. She's either going to write you up and reprimand you. But you know, I learned in my entire career in government and HR, 15 years, I never had not one EEO complaint or lawsuit against me. And guess why? Because why do people complain and sue? They sue because they're hurt. It's bad manners, bad managers. And I always used to tell my managers, just treat people with dignity and respect. Don't treat people like they're minutia, like treat them like they're people. And you know, people don't get up in the morning and say, gee, today I think I'm gonna be a low performer. Well, today I think I won't do my job very well. Usually when people are not performing, there's a reason, and we have to get into their life. I recently did a feature in Texas CEO, which is on my website, called Leading with Love. What does that look like? I wish today in America we would learn to lead with love and patience, because I think if we did, we wouldn't have the issues that we're dealing with. When you treat people with respect and you listen and you value their opinion, all of a sudden, you're dealing with that person. And so my conversation went like this. I really want to help you be successful. What's going on in your life right now that's preventing you from being successful in the job? Tell me about what you're dealing with. And then, perhaps this isn't the fit for you. How can I find you? How can I help you find the right fit? And I would do everything within my power as the influencer of HR in Texas to find that person another job in another agency, another location where they could be successful. And that doesn't mean you're moving problems. That means you're helping people start over. And when you understand my journey in my life, you're going to know why I have taken that approach and strategy. And so today you guys are super, super connected here. You're here, and I understand your purpose and your charge is to talk about leadership and leading. And I will tell you a little bit about that. But first, I thought I'd give you a little bit about my story and tell you a little bit about my heart. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas. As I said, I'm a border town gal. I'm one of 4 children. My mother was a single mother, and we grew up in abject poverty. Okay, ladies, when I say poverty, I mean below ground level poverty. Where my mother was a product of the welfare system. Unfortunately, she had mental illness. She was a drug addict. She didn't know what she didn't know. She didn't have the support that I've had over my life and my adult life to get out of her mess. So I'm one of 4 children. My little baby sister's father is African American. My older brother's father is Mexican, and my father, along with my twin brother's father, was Yugoslavian. That's why I'm so tall. I know some of you Mexicans going, why the hell is she so tall? That's because my papa was from Yugoslavia. So yes, I took my dad's genes, even though I didn't know him. But we always used to tell my mom, you just need the Asian to complete the circle of diversity in our family. She was an all-inclusive gal. Listen, back in the day, that word didn't even exist. But in all honesty and transparency, we struggled because mother had addiction. Her drug of choice was heroin. And at the age of 5, she told me she was going to the grocery store and she never returned. We were left in the projects. We lived right on the border of El Paso and Juarez. Back in the day when you could walk across the border, you can't do that now, but at the Kennedys, and it was one of the most dangerous areas in the city to live in, but we lived there. And she just left. She never returned. And after 3 days of being by ourselves, my little sister was 6 months old and in the crib. A neighbor called my grandmother and said, Graciela has gone. You need to come get these kids or I'm going to call social services. So my grandmother, how many here were raised by your grandmother? My grandmother was my hero. She quit her job, came over and took over all these little babies and raised us. For 2 years, we did not know where my mother was. We thought she was dead. We thought she was overdosed. She had come and gone throughout our life. At that point, I remember at 3 years old, she was admitted into the Great Springs Mental Hospital. So the whole story of the nutty gritty, I call it Rebecca in the Raw and Dirty, is in the book. In the first 5 chapters, you'll read about the story. But, you know, being abandoned at age 5 years old as a girl without any kind of direction or any kind of knowing why my mother had left really, really did a number on my psyche. And, you know, we understand we're dealing with so many issues today in our society that deal with trauma, whether it's addiction or whether it's abandonment or whether it's loss. But trauma is a real serious thing, and it can really damage a child's personality, a child's success, a child's future permanently. And so she was gone for 2 years. We didn't know where she was. After 2 years, my grandmother found her. When she left, my mother struggled her whole life with obesity. And when she came back, she was 90 pounds and almost dead. She had been shooting heroin in the streets of Juarez and dancing for 2 years. And I saw my mother dig herself out of that hole very, very aggressively, determined to kick her addiction. And between that point and 2 years later, which I was about 7, she came back clean, and she took us and moved us away and ripped us away at the time from the only stable home that we had had with grandmother and moved us to Austin, Texas. Now, I was excited because my mother had come back, and I thought, wow, she's back. We're going to get to do life with her. But unfortunately, an addict dealing with trauma, even if you stop doing drugs, if you don't deal and heal with that trauma, you will still always be a dysfunctional human being. And my mother was of the old school mentality. How many old school moms do we have that we all have old school moms? She wouldn't go to the doctor, nothing's wrong with her, leave her alone, let her live her life. And I could not get her to get help. And so I grew up from the age of 7 to almost 13 when I finally spun out of control in my own life with a mother who just would not deal with her past. And I remember asking her, Mom, why won't we talk about what happened to you? Why won't you talk about what happened to us? She just didn't want to talk about it. And she was functional in the sense of being there and trying to help, but she was still very much absent in her mind and struggled a lot with bipolar disease and depression and in and out. And it really, really, most importantly, we were still in abject poverty, and I couldn't understand why, you know, she couldn't just get a job, you know, and help and get us out of that situation. And so at the age of 13, guess what happened to Rebecca? I spun out of control, started using drugs, and the whole story is in the book, and just decided to go on a path to self-destruct. because I didn't understand who I was. I didn't know my value. I found out when I was a teenager that my father was the owner of a nightclub my mom danced at, and that it was a one-night stand, and that it was a bet of my mother, you know, getting together with this guy who supposedly was a homosexual. And that was the way I found out I was born. And I thought, well, first of all, why would a mother tell a child that? You know, in the first place, I don't know about you, but I got stuff in my past. I don't go around telling my kids, you know, now of course they've read the book and they know it all. But, but there's a reason for that. But, you know, I really didn't understand how in the world could this have happened to me. I did not have a purpose. I did not have value. And I certainly did not want to put value in who I was, because what I was at that point was not worth it. And between the ages 13 and 17, I spun out of control. I ended up getting pregnant at 17, dropped out of school. At the time, they didn't have a program like they have now where you could actually get your GED and stay in school. And I really, really decided this is going to be the path for me. I guess my purpose and my path is the generational cycle of poverty and addiction and illness. Until at the age of 19, I'd had enough. And the reason that and I tell this story in the book, there was a pivotal moment that happened, so I would encourage you to get it, that really woke me up. And I had, as Oprah said, your aha moment in life, and decided something's got to change. And if I've swore to myself when I was 15 years old, I will never be like my mother. I will never, ever have a child and abandon her. Yet here I was at age 19 with a little girl who did not really know me and who was being raised by my mother. So I changed my life and enrolled in a welfare to work initiative and started working for a woman by the name of Ann Richards. Do you guys remember Ann? Yes. Ann was a fire pistol. I loved her. Guess what? She took me into her program. It was a welfare to work initiative at the time that was getting moms off of welfare into work. And I got my first job working as her receptionist at the State Treasury Department when she was the treasurer of Texas. Treasury, let me tell you, you go from being on welfare and not having 2 pennies to rub together to working for Ann Richards. Of course, I didn't know who Ann Richards was from Adam until I saw her in action. And then when I saw her in action, I'm like, I want to be like her. That's who I want to be like. And of course, Ann went off to be governor of Texas. I stayed in the State Treasury Department and started to grow my career and grow my way up. And I met a woman who came in with another power woman in Texas by the name of Kay Bailey Hutchison. Kay came in as the state treasurer, and all of a sudden I saw another woman in power, and I thought, oh my God, all these women that are so powerful, I can totally be like them. And I went back to school at the time. My mentor, her name is Donna, and she's in the book as well. I was recently with Donna in Dallas. 2 weeks ago, I was giving a keynote in Dallas, and I called her and I said, hey, I want to have lunch with you. And I went to see her. She's precious, precious. She's about this big, little bitty. She's retired now. And I said to her, I said, Donna, what did you see in me at that time? When I had really no education, I was a dropout, I had no abilities other than I knew I had a passion, I knew what I wanted to do, I just didn't know how to get there. And she said, Rebecca, you had grit and you had determination, and I saw that you really wanted it really, really badly, and I thought my mission in life was to help you get to where you wanted to go. Donna is the reason that I am an HR professional today. She was the HR director for Kay Bailey Hutchison. She sent me back to school, to the School of Public Affairs, LBJ. I got my HR certification. I started working. Within 6 years, lady, of that taking that welfare to work job, I had worked my way up all the way to being the HR supervisor for the governor of Texas. Yes, the governor, George W. Bush. Well, you say, well, how did you get from the Treasury to the governor's office? Well, guess where Donna Reynolds went when she left her state government career? She left Kay Bailey Hutchison. If you all know Texas history, Kay went on to be U.S. Senator, and then comes another treasurer. And then all of a sudden in 1995, and at that point my mentor at that point 4 years had resigned, and I stayed behind in the state treasury department, and she went off to work for the new governor. And I got a call in January of 1995. I had not seen her in over a year. And she said, Rebecca, guess who I'm working for? I'm working for the new governor of Texas. Come on over and be my deputy director for HR in the Capitol. And there I went. Ladies, I interviewed for one job in my government career my entire life, and that was that welfare to work receptionist position that I'd held in 1989 when I worked for Ann. And I can tell you that every step of the way, this is why I do Girls a Legacy. This is why I give back to these young women, because every step of the way, I am the woman I am today for 3 reasons. Number one, the people that invested in me and believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. And number 2, an incredible support system of family and tribe and mentors and women that have empowered me, and I in turn now help and support to empower them. The network that I have around me and the people that will either make or break you. And number 3, because somewhere up above, some higher power decided to take his chance on this little Rebecca with nothing. And I believe that when employing those 3 things in your life and living through that line of sight of allowing people to speak into your life and teach you things you don't know, investing and giving back to mentors and letting mentors invest in you, and relying on a higher power when everything hits the fan and your life goes to shit, all of that together has been such an incredible part of a catalyst that has really helped to set me up for success. And so in 1995, there I go to work for the new governor, George W. Bush. Once again, terrified out of my mind that I thought I didn't think I had what I thought it took to get the job done. But I worked really hard. I had another top official that I recently went. I was recently with President Bush in May, actually, at the library, and had a chance to huddle with him. He did read my book and wrote me a personal note and said, that it pretty much rocked his world. And I said, I'm sorry that I had to go like raw in here. Like, most people didn't know my background until after I told my story. Own your story, but don't tell it till you're ready to tell it. Tell it within your own power, okay? Because sometimes you go around telling your story and you're like, people don't appreciate it, you know, because they don't understand it. Until you own your power, and then you're able to tell your story in the way that you want to. But he did. He was very gracious and is super proud. And I remember talking to someone that was his top advisor, also asking that same question, what did you see in me? And she was also an incredible power woman. And she said, Rebecca, you worked so hard. You literally worked everyone else out. And you were constantly looking at, how can I support? What initiative can I get behind? Where can I volunteer? There was no job or no task that you were not willing to undertake, no matter how small or no matter how daunting. You were always willing to do whatever we needed in order to get the job done. And so all of those things led to my success. But then, all of a sudden, my boss, Donna Reynolds, at that time, that amazing HR director, goes off and says, this would have been in 1997, she said, I'm leaving the governor's office, and I'm going to recommend you to Governor Bush to take my job. Ladies, when she said that, I was terrified. I was like, oh no, wait, where are you going? Wait a minute, don't leave me. I've had you in my life for all this time. And you know what she said? She said, Rebecca, you're ready to fly. I didn't know I was ready to fly until I jumped off the ledge and had to do it. So I don't know how many managers we have here that have that strategy. You don't always wait for everything to be perfect before you step into that next thing. You sort of just take that leap. That's the way my life has been. And I became the director of HR in 1997. And then 2 to 3 years after that, someone decided to run for president. I was going to stay in my government job. I'd had 12 years at that point in the state of Texas. I was vested, and Governor Perry was coming in, and he had offered me to stay as director of HR in the new administration. And I was putting together a list of people that would move to D.C. to go work for President Bush. And his chief of staff said to me, the governor asked me about you today, and he asked if you would go to D.C. with us. And I looked at him, and I'm like, me? You talking to me, literally? Little Rebecca? And he said, yeah, you. Never did I know if someone had told me when I was 17, a high school dropout, riddled with poverty, hopeless, and lost. Rebecca, one day you're going to be an advisor to the leader of the free world. Rebecca, one day you're going to be a mother and a grandmother of amazing children. You're going to have your own family unit. Rebecca, one day you're going to be part of the fastest growing demographic in the state of Texas, a woman business entrepreneur with a near $30 million business and 120 people. One day you're going to make an impact in the next generation of women in power. If somebody had said that to me at age 17, I would have probably used a few choice words and laughed in their face. You never know the people that you're going to impact when you run across their path in the state of Texas, in your office, where you're leading, in your community, in your church, in your synagogue, wherever you walk. Imagine the people that you have the chance to impact and the purpose that they might have 10 and 20 and 30 years from now. You really never know who you're going to come in contact with. I am so fulfilled in my life to know that not only have I had an opportunity to change the trajectory for my children will never know what it's like to not have a mother's love. My grandchildren will never know what it's like to worry that their grandmother's going to die of mental illness. The girls' a legacy that I change and that I impact and that I invest in are never going to know whether or not I'm for them or against them. And I'm honored that all of that happened because I stayed in my government career and answered the call to serve 3 iconic leaders, and then did whatever I could to play my part and my role in the little sphere of influence that I started with. And then as I grew in my sphere of influence, I continued that legacy of investing and listening and giving back and doing the right thing, even in the midst of crises, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of political discord. I worked for Democrats and Republicans. Listen, there's chaos on both sides, but we all know that. But in the midst, I made a decision as a leader, as an employee first and then as a leader. I'm here to make a difference, and I'm here to impact my sphere of influence. I also had no idea that I would start a business. Somebody was crazy enough to tell me, one of my mentors, this would have been in 2006, you know, Rebecca, I wanted to leave government because I wanted to start a nonprofit. I came back to Texas. My mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and I really wanted to be close to her, and I'm glad I did. I lost her when she was 62, about 10 years ago. But I was here with her, by her side, holding her hand the entire time of her journey and battle. I was the only one of all my siblings to be there by her side at the end. But I was so happy that I could love Mom where she was, because she never had any ill intentions. She was Mom. She had her own struggles. But at that time, I wanted to go into private sector because we wanted to start a nonprofit and work with inner city kids, because I grew up in the inner city and wanted to give back. And somebody was crazy enough to tell me, you know, Rebecca, you could take your expertise and use it to start your own business. Through our nonprofit Launchpad, we have touched over 2,500 inner city families and have helped transform their own lives through the give back and through the change, predominantly working in the education system in Austin in inner city schools. But I wouldn't have been able to do any of that if I hadn't started my business. So every step of the way, as I have been, you know, mapping out my plan and thinking about what the next step is, I always remember 3 core tenets. Never forget where you came from. Always make sure to ensure that the give back is prevalent and present. And never ever stop dreaming and realizing your dream. It's so important for us to embrace those things in our own life. So today I wanted to share with you, out of this story, there are things that I have learned in what I call resolve leadership. And I have to say, I did work for 3 Texas iconic leaders. The last one, George W. Bush, I had the privilege of serving almost 12 years under his administration in Texas, in the White House, and then he also appointed me during the war to serve on the board of West Point. That's a whole other story that's in there of why me and West Point, what West Point makes sense. But I've learned something called resolve and how to lead with resolve. And an important factor as managers, as supervisors, as women, as leaders, community leaders, whatever sphere of influence you lead in, developing that resolve is so important today, especially in today's with today's issues, with today's climate, with today's challenges that we face, not only in our own community, but also across other communities as we travel and as we intersect with people that we know. Number one, resolve is firmly deciding on a course of action and sticking to it no matter what. And then there's another little word that I like to employ in my everyday work called grit. Grit is passion and perseverance and the persistence to stay the course. Imagine what would happen if everybody, through the lens of resolve and grit, stayed the course in their mission. You know, number one, we're living in an unprecedented time today. How many would agree this is unprecedented where we are in America today? It really is. Although my husband, who's 10 years older than me, says there's nothing new under the sun. Things happen, you know, they're cyclical. But I feel like, and I've been in government a long time. Currently, all of my clients are government clients in D.C. I serve the Biden administration, and I'll be there. Actually, I leave tomorrow. We'll be there through Saturday. And I've before served the prior administration to that, and before served the Obama administration. I've been serving as a consultant in government to every administration in office, and I can tell you we're all dealing with unprecedented issues in time. And the chaos and the crises seems to be the way and norm. Post-pandemic culture, I read a stat the other day done by Gallup, 34% of women are fed up and have burnout in their career and in the workplace. Why is that an important stat? Why does it matter that 34%? So if you look at this room, at least a third of this room is ready to do something else and is burned out. That's what Gallup says, and I believe Gallup. But why is that? And why does that matter? Because guess what? We are the ones that make things happen. We are the ones that shake and mobilize our families. We are the ones that stay steady when everything hits the fan. We are the ones that are the glue that holds everything together. So if women are burned out, that stat for men is 25%. So we're double digits more than men in burnout, post-pandemic culture. We're the glue. We have political discord at an all-time high now. Higher than I've ever seen it, and I've worked for 3 different administrations on both parties. The way of intolerance, all of a sudden, even among family in discussion, there's no way to have, you know, a discussion about disagreements without an intolerant type behavior. All these things are concerning, they are. But as a glass half full gal, and I've just told you my story, it creates an opportunity for us to employ leadership. It creates an opportunity for us to thrive versus survive in our influence, where we are in our own government role. It creates an opportunity for us to step into it and fill the gap where there is a leadership gap, where there is a gap in peace, where there is a gap in people not loving each other, where there is a gap in chaos and brings stability. And it starts with us. I call it, for such a time as this, leadership. As women, empowering each other and supporting each other to lead in a different kind of resolve, in a different kind of climate. And lastly, number 3, the choice is ours. The choice is ours wherever we are to lead with resolve, with grit, with love, with peace. Resolve, and that behavior in particular, it's the flip side of what I call rigidity and stubbornness and pride. So we all know, and we have bosses, and there's a big story I tell in the book of one of the top officials that worked for Governor Bush who pretty much tore me to shreds in a management meeting. Has that ever happened to anybody? Where you have somebody, it happens to be a man. It's not always a man, sometimes it's a woman, but for me it was a man. Tried to belittle me, tried to make me feel like I didn't have the credentials to do what I do. I'll tell you a quick story. This is a really powerful story. When I first got to the White House, I had come from Austin. I had never left Texas, ladies. My first plane flight was my honeymoon. I had never lived outside of Austin and El Paso. And all of a sudden, y'all remember the recount crisis, so I was in Texas, you know, knew I was going to go, but didn't know if he was going to be president. Within a week of that recount, I get a call, president wants you in D.C. in 5 days. I have little babies. My son was in first grade. My daughter was in 8th grade. How many moms of middle schoolers do we have here? Oh my God, God bless you, God bless you. I had to leave. I had to up and leave by myself. I had never been anywhere without my husband. My husband is my driver. I love that he drives me everywhere. I had to land in D.C., rent a car. How many have been to D.C.? Have y'all been to DuPont Circle? I never knew about DuPont Circle. To hell, I wish somebody had told me about this circle. I'm driving around and around and around. I called the lady at the office and said, I can't get out of this circle. She's like, yeah, you need to like turn this direction. I'm like, I didn't know it was a circle. It looked different to me. Anyway, I'm literally crying in my hotel room. I left my babies. I was shaking out of my feet. I was the only one in the entire, I was a commissioned officer, which is ranked at a 2-star general. I didn't know what that meant other than, what does that mean? That just means you get access to the president in the West Wing and you have a signet ring from the president. I'm like, I don't care about that. I'm just here to serve the president. Honestly, I'm just here to do my job. But here I go, and within 30 days of being there, the Secret Service knocks on my door. I'm not going to tell you that story because it's in the book. And they came with this huge book of Rebecca's past. Hey, listen, people like to talk. I'm like, who would have known that that person knew that I was doing that and that and that? Oh, my Lord. Anyway, it's a long story. It's in the book. I did make clearance. Thank God. Thank you, President Bush. And it was because I had a reputation for getting things done, and they trusted me. Not because I had a squeaky clean background, right? But the chief of staff calls my boss 30 days in and says, you know, Rebecca, you know, so-and-so said, this powerful person who I didn't care. I didn't care how much money people had. I didn't care what political position they had. All I wanted to do was serve the president. And apparently I pissed some big, you know, important guy off in D.C. that I didn't like bow down to his, you know. I made him go through the interview process and send him an application because he wanted to serve the president. I said, here's the application. Well, I am so-and-so. Okay, great. There's 90,000 people in our system that want to work for the president. Go through the application process. And apparently he didn't like that. So I was terrified because the chief of staff had complained that Rebecca doesn't know who these people are. She's in one of the most important jobs. She's treating everybody the same. And I thought I was supposed to do that. I thought that's what a good HR director does, right? So, not in D.C. In D.C., it's all about power, clout, and political influence. Well, guess what? Rebecca don't play that game. Rebecca still don't play that game. So anyway, I get sit down, and I thought I was going to get fired. And my boss, who was my other mentor that changed my life, the president's best friend, said to me, he said, so-and-so called and complained, and the majority leader at the time was part of that call that complained about me. They didn't know who I was from Adam. I was the only one on the team that wasn't this top credentialed political person. And then I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Was I supposed to do something different? Like I've been taught my whole life to treat everybody the same, to have equal process, protect the president. And he said, Rebecca, you're doing exactly what the president hired you to do. You keep doing. He has confidence in you. He has trust in you. You keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, whew, thank God. But here I am terrified. I've left my family, and I have nobody there. I don't know anybody other than my colleagues from the governor's office. I didn't have family. 30 days later, my husband came. I was terrified those first, I would say, 6 months in the White House, and then 911 hit. That story's in the book, too. I was in the White House when 911 hit and was evacuated with Secret Service, could not get to my family and my babies, who were an hour and a half away for hours and hours, and we had no family in Manassas. Terrifying. But I knew, ladies, for such a time as this, leadership. Maintaining the peace. 2022, last year, was one of the toughest times in my personal family. Tougher than I have ever undertaken in almost 20 years. I had a loved one that had a break. And it was in the middle of my book launch. Thankfully, Lost Girl has touched over 300,000 people with the message. In the middle of my book launch, I had an interview scheduled, and I had a crisis in my family, in my personal life. How many have crises in your personal life from time to time? And you're still managing, right? You still have to get up and go to work. You still have to lead. You still have to lead people. And I was devastated. I felt traumatized all over again. It took me about a week to get my stuff together, to center myself again and remember who I was. And most importantly, remember that I'm not responsible for that person. Even though I love them dearly, they have to own their own future and their own healing. And I had a family member, somebody very close to me, say, "What are you doing? You need to lay that speaking tour down. You're up on stage talking about your success, talking about all this. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because this is who I am. You need to stop. You're fake. You need to get off that stage because you're dealing with this crisis." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because somebody else is struggling. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do both. I'm going to support that loved one, not enable them, but support them and keep doing what I'm doing because I can't stop." There are 3 things as women that we should face when we face issues, crises, shit, whatever you face. There are 3 things we should do. We should either tear that wall down, figure out a way to go around it, or scale it. That's who we are built to do as leaders. We don't stop. It doesn't mean we're fake. It doesn't mean that we don't cry. It doesn't mean that we don't grieve. But as leaders with resolve, we keep going. We keep impacting. There are 3 R's I want to leave you with. They're Rebecca's R's. When this happens and you deal with crises or issues in the workplace, in your home, in your community, wherever you are, what does resolved leadership look like? Number 1 R, release control. As much as I would love to think that I am in control, guess what? We're not. We're not in control. We can control ourselves, and we can control our response, and we can control how we show up as leaders, but we're not in control. Number 2 R, rest and refresh as the center point of who you are. Take care of you, ladies. I am number 1. I am number 1. I haven't always been number 1. But last year when I went through my crisis with my family member who I love dearly, I learned I was trying to fix everybody else and serve everybody else, and I had neglected me. So I'm number 1, and my family knows Mama's number 1, because if Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody gonna be happy, right? Isn't that true? Self-care and self-love, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, take care of yourself. Because we are the fixers, because we are the movers and shakers, because we make things happen. If we're not healthy and whole, we cannot lead. And the last R, right people. Have the right people around you, right people to lead, right people to work for you, right people to guide you, right people for you to invest in. Don't spend your time and waste your time on people that are not going to change, and try to pour into people that you know they ain't going to do anything with their life. They've been like that, and your energy can go somewhere else. The right people. The goodness of God through that crisis in 2022 for me and my family, it was one of the biggest growth years for my business, 20% margins in growth. My book touched hundreds and thousands of people, the story of Lost Girl, which is a story of hope. And I got through it. And guess what? I'm better today for it. And that loved one is better today for it. Because I didn't enable, I empowered and released. There's a myth that successful leaders in a turbulent world are continually bold, seeking, risk-taking. The research shows contrary to that myth. The best leaders studied did not have a vision to predict what happened. They did not have a vision for navigating that chaos. They just rose to the occasion to lead in resolve in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of that crisis. I want to leave you with a quote from Good to Great, Jim Collins, one of my favorite authors in leadership. Good is the enemy of great. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, as it turns out, is largely a matter of a conscientious choice of discipline. So, choose today and every day you wake up how you're going to show up in your leadership. Choose to lead with resolve and grit, in humility, with peace and love, everywhere you go, and let's take ownership of changing our communities. We cannot change Washington, D.C. We can't even change the Capitol here in Texas, although I think Texas is ready for a new kind of leadership. How many would agree with that? We can't change. All we can do is show up in our own power, with our own influence, in our own love, and be who we are to be every day, steady, resolved, with grit and humility. God bless you, and enjoy your conference. Thank you.